I am grateful for my friends. I am grateful for their patience. Thank you, friends, for your patience. I took a long winter's break, got my health in order, have achieved my goals. My weight is stable. My blood sugar is in my target range. Ooh, life is good. Mental health is happy. So I'm back at you. I now have time for some philanthropic efforts, and I will be trying to get back to you, weekly. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yesterday, I had a great conversation with a conservative Christian friend of mine. I say friend here. You might be a little surprised knowing my positions, and because this is my goal to reach across ideological lines and find people who are willing to discuss nuanced topics in public. I may not move them. That's not important. It's the nuanced exploration for you and for the movable middle on any particular wedge topic. They're the ones I'm trying to reach. The ones who can think about the ideas once you get the anger and the slurs out of the way and come to their own conclusion, because I think that's where the wisdom comes in. That's where I think our best thing is for the future. That's my goal here. So I share with you this. Thank you for your attention on it. Oh, this is not really street epistemology, but you'll notice the use of street epistemology tools in it. So it's 3/4 overlapping. The interesting fiery bit is in the last fourth. And yep, I seek your feedback as to whether I was over the top. And it was very much not SE during that time. And I hope you'll also note my saying so in context. Thank you. Boys, about that. It's live.
This is my first time. I'm so nervous.
Oh, good. I'm not.
This isn't your first time.
And that was my fault.
What happened?
I had the stream come up over there and I hadn't muted it yet.
I didn't
My
hear
bad.
it. Okay.
But I do have confirmation our audio is good.
Okay. Let me check. If you guys can comment on Facebook or YouTube and let us know that we're up and running. Oh, I see us on Facebook.
Yay!
And I see us on YouTube. Oh my gosh, so exciting. I've been thinking about starting a podcast for so long. I've had people telling me to start a podcast for years. And it's finally happening. All right. Okay, we're going to talk about transgenderism today. Thank you, Michael. All right, so first, I think we should define our terms. But before we even do that, let's just have like opening statements. Just like
prompt me, give me a question so that
okay, I'll go first.
Tell me what I should statement.
Okay. So we dealt with gender one way for a long time. There were males that were men, females that were women, and there were like a few trans people, but they were not generally accepted. And then you had sex segregated spaces, sports, locker rooms, bathrooms, all these kinds of spaces.
Can I hold you up? I'm running out of fingers. So let me respond to what you said. Gender in the past, like when I was born, was synonymous with sex. There was no distinction.
Right.
And now that's a change. And in the past, trans people who did not conform to that difference that we're now making a new word around, or making a new use of an existing word around, were very pushed back against in society. And I for myself, I would say, and they still are a lot and less than they were. And my position is that I would like us to continue that trend a long ways past where we are now. So that would that be my position? And please
Is
continue.
that your position that you genuinely hold?
That's my honest response to that many fingers so far. And then you had more.
Yeah, so we did it one way. And then in the last, like, I feel like 8 years ago, the moment that things changed was when Bruce Jenner came out as Caitlyn Jenner.
Okay. So for you,
like that's a defining moment.
Caitlyn is a defining milestone.
Yeah.
Good time in history.
I feel like before that, I hadn't heard of this stuff.
Okay, cool.
And everything changed. It was like overnight. People were just like, yeah, he is she now. Bruce is Caitlyn. Got a Woman of the Year award or something like that for bravery or something.
Sure.
Some sort of award.
I see her as brave and heroic, even though I am politically misaligned with her mostly. Go ahead.
Bruce Jenner is an interesting person because
thank you for not tripping on my terms. I know I'm using pronouns differently than you are, and just allow my habit. Thank you.
Using so running for the governor of California, and I recently saw him on a podcast, and he was talking to a right winger, and he was like, he doesn't think that trans male to female should be participating in women's sports, for example.
Okay.
And so he's more moderate.
Okay.
Than some trans activists.
Yeah. Okay. So on that prompt, I'm going to say, I'm going to leave that one completely to the sporting authorities. When they originally made the classes, they were referring to sex. And now terminology has changed. And there's a big push to sort of back solve this. And I think if there were good reasons for having classes and distinctions, they should evaluate what those reasons are and where those classes should be for the good of the sport and the participants. Make a rule that's specific to the sport. And I bet those dividing lines are completely different depending on the sport.
I think in most
some cases, there's, I'm betting in some sports, there's almost no difference. And in other sports, it's night and day.
Well, there's a few sports where it doesn't matter, where it's already sex integrated. Shooting, equestrianism.
Sure.
Very, very long distance running.
Yeah.
There might be another one.
Where the difference is just they resolve to unimportant, and so we can collapse that. Good.
Right. Well, we've already collapsed it.
Yeah.
Women have already been participating with the men because they don't have a disadvantage.
It is my intuition that list of sports, if well analyzed, would grow, not shrink. I think there's a lot of sports that are separated because of social reasons, wherein the performance is not actually statistically significantly different, where we still have different groups not competing together.
Well, anything like tennis, soccer, basketball.
Yeah.
Women even play football.
Those definitely cater to a specific phenotype, a specific body presentation, each of those. And that presentation is way about the difference of the two bell curves
Mm-hmm.
on how people are proportioned and all the things.
Yeah. So I think that a body who has gone through testosterone based puberty, which isn't necessarily a male anymore,
Yes, thank you.
shouldn't be competing against people that have not gone through testosterone based puberty.
In those sports where that's important, I'm
Right. Which
completely
is
with you.
virtually all of them.
Well, okay, if it's the majority of them, that's fine, no problem. And you would still agree with me that some sports it matters a lot, some sports it matters a little, and some sports it matters not at all.
Only the sports
Those aren't graded.
where,
You can sort them.
um, like for shooting, it doesn't matter. Your strength and speed doesn't matter.
Right.
It's about accuracy.
Mhm.
Um,
Women are better snipers.
right. Um, equestrianism. Um, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Riding horses.
Yeah,
Women
yeah.
have an advantage because they tend to be smaller, and the men who do it are small men.
Right, right. It's not gendered, it's sized. Like basketball
Right.
in the other direction.
Um, but
Tall women would kick my ass.
even in sports where you're weight classed,
Mhm.
the women would have a really hard time
The weights are
competing
offset.
against.
If they were doing competing in wrestling, frankly, there's social reasons why that's not necessarily the same competition, um, especially amongst the heterosexuals. Anyway, so if you were trying to compare, then you'd have an offset, you'd have a handicap,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
fine, okay, whatever formula makes it fair and good for the sport, fine. I don't want to tie it to people's identities and politics.
Right.
That's the thing that you would object to, and that's the thing that I object to in changing the subject to whether it's women or female sports and wrestling over that distinction.
I want to, ultimately what I would ideally like, because I'm a libertarian, is to see a separation of the government from sports.
How's the government in this?
Well, the government, public schools have huge sports systems. Um, the public school, colleges that get government money.
Uh-huh.
The government's involved with the sports, Title IX.
Hmm.
And then there's like the there's a lot of government
Yeah.
funding and rule making that goes into sports, and the government grants certain organizations monopolies.
Mhm.
Um, and so you can't have competing sports. What's the word?
Th
Organizations.
Yeah, this is getting so far into economics, I think,
Well,
and
when
I
it comes to
I'm not
society, it's
saying
all
that these
related.
things don't all overlap. I'm really interested in the civil rights component of it,
Hmm.
and the question about, like, funding school football. Okay, school football's another soapbox for me, but it would be a real change of subject if I were to go there from trans.
Women don't even play football.
Um,
Um,
okay.
it's okay if we get off topic a little bit.
I'm
Um,
I'm fine. Keep going.
um, but ideally, that's what I would like to see the solution be, so that you can have some communities or individuals signing up for the conservative sports organization and other people signing up for the liberal sports organization that have different
You want
rules.
to introduce politics into sports classes?
Oh, it's already because it's funded
How does
and
this
regulated by the
serve?
government.
What purpose does this serve to separate people into sports categories based on their politics?
Oh, because um basically right now it's win-lose. Either the conservatives win and transgender people cannot play in women's sports, or conservatives win. or you're going to have a mismatch of different states having different policies. And then when they come together for national championships, it's going to be a problem. And you're going to have the team that has a trans person on it, and the other team refuses to play them. I mean, it's already political.
I'm lost in cognitive dissonance.
Really?
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time understanding how this relates to the trans question, or how
Should we
these
back
two
up and define
solutions.
terms first and then come back to this?
Sure. I also didn't hear any goal served by separating sports teams into different groups based on politics. I
Okay,
only
so it's
heard
just
that you thought
freedom.
it was already the case.
Um,
And then I'm way happy to go back. I'm sorry. I'm just I got stuck and I'm just taking a moment. Go ahead.
okay, so you know what happened with the swimmer, the trans swimmer, and then what's her name? Came she's a cis girl
Yeah.
that got
The in any of these things, I know so much trans stuff. It's like saying, you know, that politician that was talked about in a movie from last year.
the
What?
trans swimmer.
What? Please tell me the story. I'm
Okay,
I'm at loss for a one reference.
okay. Leah Thomas.
Okay.
Um,
I
Leah
suck at
Thomas.
names.
What?
I suck at names. I probably can't remember based on that. Go ahead.
Okay. Leah Thomas won the NCAA D1 title, so college swimming,
Okay, cool.
and
Congratulations.
the cis woman that she. You know what? I'm going to ask
Leah is
ChatGPT.
trans.
What's the name of
Is Leah
Leah
trans? That the
Thomas?
whole story is a trans
Yes.
woman won a women's match. Is that right?
Yes. Leah
Thank you.
Thomas, a
That's all I
trans
needed.
woman.
The rest is just the illustration.
And I'm forgetting the name of the cis woman that was competing against her.
Yes. So a cis woman came in second because a
Right.
trans woman won the match. Go ahead.
And she was speaking at a college, and there
The
was
cis
a
woman was
violent,
speaking at the
yes,
college? Okay.
yes, about how it's not fair that a trans person was allowed
I understand.
to not only compete against them in swimming,
Sure.
but also go into their locker room
Yeah.
and expose his penis to them, and how uncomfortable that was, and how the whole thing was very unfair.
Okay.
And so she has been publicly speaking out about this, and going on podcasts and things. And she went to a college to speak about this, and a violent mob attacked her and basically trapped her in a room where she was held hostage.
Mhm. Wow. So now we have a hostage situation.
Yeah.
That was you buried the lead on me here.
Yeah. Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines threatens legal action after being attacked by trans rights activists during SF state speech.
Mm-hmm. Michael had a comment. Is that worthy of us reviewing? Michael Kerner. Thank
If a
you.
team that accepts trans women on a women's team ends up playing a team that does not accept a trans person, the competition is not fair. This has already happened. Yeah. And there's teams that have refused, who have just forfeited because they've refused to
Well,
compete against them.
okay. Now you've finally given me a reason for your original thing of split them into different political parties because you will
Mm-hmm.
have fewer of them boycotting each other over their political views.
Yeah.
Is that a good reason?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your best reason?
I think everyone could get along better if we're free to do our own thing and we're not coerced into um
I'm not as free to
one
do my own
system.
thing if I'm in a sport that only has 3 people in it.
Well, you're still free.
Yeah, I'm free
No one's
to
forcing you.
waste my time.
Yeah,
But if you
that's
subdivide the
freedom.
sport enough, you kill it.
Yep. That's a free market. That's
Okay.
how businesses
Free.
work.
Okay, fine. Because I don't care about sports either. You go ahead then.
Okay. Do you have any comments on Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines?
Sounds like a criminal situation that happened to involve a trans person.
Right.
You're going to find those. Probably in similar proportion to the mainstream. Probably more in sports competitors. I think I have, I'm remembering something about figure skaters bashing each other in the knees.
The movie with Margot Robbie was so good.
The movie. Is this about this figure skaters thing?
Mm.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see the movie.
Very, very good.
Cool.
Okay. Let's back up and define our terms. We jumped the gun on sports.
Okay.
Okay.
Hopefully we haven't run into any terms that we seem to not think we understand so far, right? Have you detected any misunderstandings of terms yet?
Nope.
Good. Then let's go for your terms directly. We don't have a backlog.
Okay. So what does it mean to be trans?
Trans specifically in this case means transgender. Obviously, that is not the only trans that could mean. It's just the one that's in common usage today. It's the default use. Transgender means somebody who is externally, the external transgender part is somebody whose behavior does not conform to gender stereotypes with them assumed, at birth or however society sees them. And they end up either masking out that conforming, and then they're sort of like just internally trans to some degree, and masking cis, or they maybe really lean into it and try to eliminate those gendered performative choices and beards and whatever else that we associate, so that they can be more strongly seen in their other presentation, and people will allow them to pass. That would be like one edge of the spectrum. So trans is, in simple terms, externally not conforming to the traditional gender stereotype.
So is everyone who doesn't conform to their gender stereotype trans?
That's all a question of definitions, and there's a whole trans wiki with so many terms, and someone like you might consider me trans for being like 10 or 20% on the scale away from cis in a few things. And other people would say you have to be at least this far on the scale in order to qualify as trans. So if you fight about where that line is, you can have a big old argument, and that can be fun, but who cares? It's a trans spectrum, if you will. Some people are a little, some people are a lot, some people are over a line that other people consider really important line. Like one that used to be important was, can you live consistently day to day in your other gender for 2 years before something trans medical something? It was one of the standards that you had to meet, because there was a concern over trans regret or detransitioning costs being an additional cost over the huge social costs that a trans person takes on when they transition publicly. Yeah. And they were concerned, do that and then do it back was going to be worse than not let them do that to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I fear that we have relaxed those rules, especially for children. I'm concerned about, where you don't even have to have that minimum standard anymore. Now, it might depend on the place, and it might depend on the clinic and the doctor, but now apparently you can say that you're trans in day one and go in and get puberty blockers.
Okay. Way open to a discussion about where that line should be, under what conditions, and for what reasons.
Mm-hmm. I don't like your definition of trans.
Okay.
Because it sounds like you can trans someone else. Like you can say, oh, you're trans because you're not gender conforming.
No, I'm saying there's an external component. The thing that we call trans is the external unmasking of that internal trans state. There's an internal component and there's an external component.
Mm.
And the argument is that when that external component matches what's going on in the internal, they function better, they're happier. That's better for them. That's their argument.
So if somebody identifies as trans, I would say that they're trans, whether they are gender conforming or not.
Yes, absolutely. It's an identity thing. I want to believe you about your identity and not argue. I think you are the best source I have for your subjective opinion about yourself.
Right. Now so gender dysphoria, but now some people are arguing that, including big names like Philosophy Tube, are arguing that you don't even need to have gender dysphoria to be trans.
I think what they are saying is that it shouldn't be a requirement in order to, it shouldn't be an additional boundary to getting medical care that would be available to you if you were presenting with a different condition. The bar becomes ridiculously bureaucratically higher based upon having to establish that diagnosis necessarily in order to receive treatment.
But if you don't have gender dysphoria, then what are you treating?
Well, you're treating gender dysphoria. This is a question of whether you are having to prove it beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt first, or whether this is a freedom to get a kind of therapy that you think is beneficial to you, will make you happy, and has a low enough side risk factor that it's within your freedom, like getting a tattoo.
So do you think that there's limits? Do you think that there's things that are beyond like getting a tattoo that people shouldn't be allowed to do to themselves, even if they think it'll make them happy?
I can come up with many, many, many medical examples.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely. And in different societies, I see very different lines on that. And again, like I say, and I would really invite nuanced discussion on what those lines should be.
Yes. Yes. Because I would categorize medical transition with all those other things you're probably thinking about that you,
So
but
let's
also
compare
I'm
it.
a libertarian. So when I say you shouldn't be allowed to, I think you should be free to do so without someone doing violence to you. But I don't think it should be socially accepted. I don't think that the government should pay for it.
For the
Does that make
closest
sense?
possible example, breast augmentation surgery,
Mm-hmm.
because it's part of some trans stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take breast augmentation surgery for a cis female.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about freedoms. Tell me about our need to protect them. Do we
Mm-hmm.
as a society have a need to regulate that activity?
Personally, my cultural values, I would say I would discourage a woman from getting a boob job. It's going to decrease her ability to breastfeed her future children. She might be able to, it might cause problems. It can cause other problems down the line. And it's just for looks. And I would discourage that. And I'm glad that
Those
the
are very,
government,
very good reasons for them to consider.
and I'm glad that the government does not fund breast augmentation
Sure.
surgery.
Unless
Um,
it's
you freeze.
necessary
Oh,
for, say, reconstruction.
right.
Did I? Unless it is necessary for reconstruction for say injuries that were not
Right.
opted into. Let's
Right.
assume,
Something
accident, the normal thing.
something went wrong.
Like smacking a car. That's probably the
Right.
most normal thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we use puberty blockers for precocious puberty.
so
Something
far,
went physically wrong.
if I'm talking about breast augmentation surgery in my community, in my society, that's only adults. Do you agree?
Sometimes teens do it, I think.
That in my society, that is not normalized.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Okay. So for breast augmentation surgery, how much is that a person's freedom? And to what degree should we as a society regulate that activity?
I don't think it should be like illegal, but I'm glad the government doesn't pay for it. I don't want my private insurance to pay for it, and I socially don't approve of it, and I wish it was less normalized.
Okay. In this case, do you approve of the very significant regulations on who, when, how they may perform these surgeries in order to medicine safety? I'm sure there's a whole crapload of ethical considerations. Do you like those? Do you like those boundaries? Do you like those restrictions?
I think that we need an organization that has these kind of regulations in mind for safety, but I don't think that it should be the same organization that throws people in jail for violent crimes.
Okay,
I
so
think that
you'd
if
like to not have it be a legal restriction, but instead socially give them the side eye.
it can be a I had to get into my whole framework
Mhm.
about
I'm here to listen.
voluntary governments. You should have criminal government, commercial government, and social government. So you can have a
I'm here to
commercial.
listen, and I'd love for us to schedule streams on those topics so that each of them do get the proper time, because
Right,
my attention span and yours is limited.
right. So a commercial government would set rules for safety standards, products, handling scams, and things of that nature.
Yes.
And if somebody does not follow their safety standards, they would not be
fraud
able to do
fraud
business with their
protections as
customers.
well. So not
Right,
only medical, also like contractual,
right,
court,
right. Yeah, civil
court,
courts.
tort. What do I say?
Yeah,
Civil. Yeah.
yeah. And so if you went to a doctor that had lost his license
Yes.
according to your commercial government, and you
Yep.
go to swipe your card to pay him, and
Yep.
it would say declined, this person is not in
Right.
network, they've been blacklisted for XYZ. And so you'd be like, oh well, I'm not going to use this doctor. And then at the social level would be like churches, mutual aid societies, and more social level things. And
Hmm.
there they would be like, cosmetic surgery is normal to us, or they would be like, this is not normal. We highly discourage it. And there would be different communities with different standards.
Okay. So, how different are those standards, or how different could those standards change over a short boundary?
What
And
do you mean?
well, okay. So if I had wildly different standards from county to county, there would be a whole lot of people uh, commuting to their doctor, or things of that order.
So, under my framework, this isn't based on geography.
Oh,
It's like I could be Christian, my neighbor can be Muslim, my other neighbor can be Jewish, my other neighbor can be
how do you
atheist,
define
and we all
communities?
go to different churches, or no churches, or like one to a mosque, one to a temple. And it doesn't, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's not a problem because I pay for what I want to pay for and I get those benefits. And
Hmm.
you can pay for what you like. We have different insurance companies, it's fine.
Hmm.
We don't all have to be under the same. I can have a doctor right next to me that's not in my social government, and I drive past him and I go a few more blocks and I go to the one that is.
Okay. So I'm getting that this is communities actually being formed and strongly having different social constraints based upon their political party.
Or, I mean, we wouldn't have political parties because we wouldn't have a coercive government. But yeah, basically,
Right.
like,
Okay.
I'm blowing your mind
So
a
these
little
aren't
bit.
political parties, but they are
More like churches.
conservative and liberal and defined along those lines. And what do you call them?
Social governments,
And
mutual aid
how
societies.
do these social governments interact with each other as
Um,
organizations?
they can, or they can choose not to. Like, oh, like our sports team is gonna go against your sports team. We'll have a friendly competition, or
A
maybe
sports
they'll be
team is
like,
a social government.
right, or maybe they'll be like,
Okay.
no, we're too different. We're not going to interact with each
I'm
other.
I'm expanding government to mean something much more.
Right. As a defined government, so government is an organization that regulates human behavior, and so I'm defining it much more broadly than how we normally think about it, because we normally think of like the
Okay.
police and the military and like you have to do this and you have to do that. But if you conceptualize a government as any organization that regulates human behavior,
Okay.
then a
Sure.
church can be a government.
Okay. Uh, sure. I'm reinstalling government here, and I'm going to wrap some other different words around it and see if I got it, and see if I can not use government in the definition. A government is, it seems, opt-in. You can opt
Right.
in and out.
Right.
There may be rituals to validate your inning and outing to prevent gamesmanship. And your public, this is almost like definition by example, sorry. Your public identification with them confers with to others expectations that you are following by a set of rules, very much like if I said I'm following the boxing rules of someplace pugilism, right? I don't care. Marcus of Queensbury? I forget. That if I follow this school of martial arts, you would know what to expect, and that I'm not going to this, but I'm very likely to that, or something.
Yeah.
And that could be a social government.
Yes.
So a person could belong to any number of them as long as they followed for any given category the proper exclusion rules, that belonging to some of them exclude you from others, and
Right.
that is a complex rock paper scissors, maybe weird multimodal, Mormons think they're Christians, Christians don't, uh, kind of thinking.
Right.
So that's a flow chart.
I imagine that you would only want to sign up for one because you wouldn't want to have to pay taxes to both.
You'd have
But
to pay taxes.
children, well,
Did you
that's
think
up
you
to
use
them.
taxes?
It's up to them what they're going to charge. Are they going to
Okay, so
charge a
one of the
tithe
barriers to
or
entry
what they're going to do?
is that to belong to our organization, you have to pay dues.
I would assume so.
Okay, that's a way
I
to
mean, it's
keep
up to them.
people from gamesman-shipping something. It's like, getting a Twitter
You got
blue
to put
check or
something
something.
in. Yeah, you
Well,
got to
I
put
mean,
something in.
Twitter blue check qualifies by your standard now.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, Elon Musk is the king of Twitter. That is his domain. And when
Yeah.
you go onto his platform, you have to follow his rules.
Yeah.
And he can ostracize you and kick you out
Yep.
if he wants to. Um, I imagine a social government being more all encompassing, so they would handle like education, healthcare, welfare system, and it would be like a system. So like, all those things that we look to government to do, that progressive, like Democrats want XYZ and all these things, and
Okay.
Republicans are like, no, that's not the role of government, right?
Mm-hmm.
If people want that from their government, they should be able to go to a government that provides that to them. And those that
So
don't,
workers' union would follow as your government as well. It probably better than most.
there could certainly be a component to that. Yeah.
Well, from what you've described, a workers' union qualifies, checks most of the boxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so there would be a bunch of different ones that do things different ways.
Okay. So now there's the government definition one that's usually found in the dictionary is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the role of that traditional government in relationship to this, what do I want to call it? Multi-dimensional, there's a really good word for this.
I just call it non-coercive or moral government.
Okay, so moral government. So the other one, that doesn't make him immoral government, but whatever.
Yeah.
The amoral government, that's not better.
Locking up peaceful people in prison is not moral. So
isn't it?
You can't use violence against nonviolent people in my book. That's a no-no.
Okay, I get your value, but that you started with, it's not normal.
Oh, I meant moral.
Moral. I misheard you. Thank you. Locking up nonviolent people is immoral. There's a live stream.
That's the whole basis of the whole thing. So then if you think it through and you're like, okay, if we want our government to do X, Y, Z and all these things, and but we don't want to break the moral natural law by giving the government the power to coercively tax and lock up peaceful people, then how are we going to get this done? By moral government.
Okay.
Definition of government.
And making up structures and identities and groupings that are strongly exclusive of each other in order that you can enforce to the opt-in group a particular moral code that will make their very narrow part of the world better.
Right. So definition
I think the
of
world
government
makes it a lot worse, but that's because I think the cost of exclusion is so incredibly high. I think the exclusion and polarization of the system that you're providing is the thing that I'm a missionary against. So cool. You're talking across ideological lines. Good job.
I think forced unity is tyranny.
Oh. Exclusion is not forced unity.
Exclusion. We need the right to exclude people. We need the right to be like, not my thing. If we're being forced to include people and behavior and ideas, then we're going to fight about everything because we're not going to agree. I mean, you could hardly get a husband and wife to agree. How are you going to get a nation of 330 million people to agree on everything, from what's the policy in the school bathrooms and sports to, I mean, everything? You're not going to agree. So you're going to fight about it constantly, and it might spill over into violence. I mean, look at what just happened to Riley Gaines.
Wow. I get this a lot. You're bringing this up, and it could, and then they write me a ridiculous story about how my mentioning a word causes somebody to become radicalized, when what I'm doing is expressing the nuanced discussion about that idea.
Well, in reality, we do see this pattern happening over and over again, where there's a war, people fight, people realize that war is hell, and they don't want to fight anymore. They compromise, they find unity, and over time, the differences start building up.
Yes.
And building up and building up.
I'm so grateful for those examples in history.
Yeah. And it gets to the point where the people who lose the election are not willing to live under the opposing political party, and they get violent about it.
Yes.
And so that's just kind of the
elephant
nature
in the room since a little before January 6th.
Right. And I mean, and The Democrats didn't take it too well when Trump won either.
Oh, right. We definitely not. I was very
So,
disappointed.
um,
I was very surprised too.
and
Strangely.
the next election, it will probably be even worse. I imagine, unless something changes.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The trend is bad, no doubt.
and that's one of the big problems with coercive government. The idea of unity sounds nice, but the cost is so high.
I
And so
don't
we
need
would,
unity.
hmm?
I don't need unity. Not at all. I really dig on these discussions between adults where we can not come to blows and we can talk about it nuancedly. And I think the solution is there. It's not in unity. It's not in shutting down the conversation. It's about keeping it in an adult space, keeping it peaceful, keeping it kind, keeping it real.
But do you think that we should be, but you don't like the idea of having separate
I don't like
systems?
strong exclusion. I see strong exclusion as a slippery slope leading down to bad things.
I see the opposite.
Okay.
I
I,
think I,
I,
I
I
feel like
understand your values and I see how
it
that we could look at the same data and come to a different conclusion.
it takes pressure off.
So I don't want to take
Um,
pressure off. I
you don't
want
want
to
to take
pressure.
pressure off?
I don't want to take pressure off. No, I want the pressure to be a forcing function to push you and I into this room where we can look at each other and hear each other and come to a better choice.
I mean, if people are so in disagreement about something and they
Yes.
can't find a compromise,
Right.
it's better to get divorced
Ah,
than to
wait.
get violent,
Right. But there's more than two people in the room
right?
because there's you and there's me and there's, well, I can't see how many in the moment that are listening to us. And in those people, I might reach them. I might move the needle.
Right.
And I'm not so concerned if I move the needle toward my position. I'm much more interested in moving the needle toward where they come to after they've thought about it in a nuanced adult way. I think that's the wisdom of the crowd. It's not me convincing somebody, it's me convincing somebody to think about it.
So do you think that if we're kind of forced to deal with each other in
Yes.
this huge group, that we will come to a better conclusion than if
Yes.
we just separate into smaller groups?
Yes. I have much, much history as to the usefulness and reliability of the wisdom of the crowd. It's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than going with your gut for a single person or a small group of people, or especially an echo chamber.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also think it's our freedom to be wrong.
Yes. Yes. And then work it out in the averages.
I mean, I'm okay with people being like, you know what? I don't like the way you guys are doing your thing. We're a community of 200 people. We're going to go over here, do our own thing, test it out.
Yeah,
And if they all end up flaming out and
absolutely.
it goes terribly, that's their
Absolutely.
right to do. But if things go
Yeah.
well,
So
then
their
we've
freedom. I
got
want to support that tremendously. I
right.
love the idea of groups going off and saying, we would like to voluntarily choose a different strategy than the rest of you and see if
Hmm.
ours works out better for us than you. And if you
Right.
like it, follow our model.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
That's how
That's
social
the best
evolution
reason for
happens.
50 states. Give us the
Right.
chance to try out a whole bunch of different stuff and see what works the best. And
Yeah.
then you'll all adopt California's values. No, I'm kidding.
I
That
like the
was just a
weather.
dig. That was just a dig.
I like the weather. But
I like the car. I like the cars.
the cars, are the cars different there?
Right over there at 10 meters is a Model Y Tesla.
Oh,
Big.
okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I'll stop now.
But you can't even drive because the traffic is so bad.
Go to town. No, the traffic's not that bad. But besides, the car drives you for you, so you can just chill. We have FSD. And oh my God. Oh my God.
But that's how social cultural evolution happens, is you have those breakaway cults that turn into the next big religion that becomes super popular. And the problem with having such large and controlling governments is that you don't have the freedom to do those breakaway things. It's very, very difficult. I mean, I guess you can sort of, but like you still have to pay all the taxes
Yeah.
to the government and then pay for your own stuff on top of it. And
Right.
it's really hard.
The top government, that definition one government that we were talking about, does not like to share. It's a
Right.
jealous little bitch. And
Yeah.
and gah. But and we as people need to grab our democratic whip and make personal freedom way more important. I think
Right.
that's what I've come to after a lot of adult careful analysis and feedback from other
Hmm.
careful adults.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's get back to trans
Yes.
issues. Okay. So
Trans.
we're talking about the definition of trans. Okay. Do you approve of the idea that there are males and females and that is biological reality?
I think there are four biological categories of sex. I think there are those who can sometime potentially in their life father a child. I think there are those that can sometimes potentially, sometimes in their life, mother a child. And I think there are a very few that can do both. I know one personally. And yes, someone
That's
with
possible.
one functional gonad and one functional ovary and one functional testicle who suffered two unwanted self pregnancies in their past. Okay, so I would categorize them as sex both. And then there are a large number of intersex individuals who are not fertile, and therefore, by my categorization, this is my own thing, they would be in the neither category. I don't want to put labels on these because people want to argue about the labels. You got my descriptions of four categories. That's for me biological sex among humans.
Okay. That's fine. As long as we have biological males, biological females,
Mhm.
and
A few
the
exceptions on both sides.
the
One in
existence of
600
people,
in one, and something like one in a few 10,000s on the other.
right? The existence of some people that do not have proper reproductive functioning
Yeah,
and can't reproduce does not negate the fact that there are males and there are females
that
who are
is such
the
a
vast
strong
majority of the
bimodal
population.
distribution. Almost
Right.
everybody falls almost equally in these two buckets over here, and these are the rare exceptions that
Okay.
on my chart.
And now we come to the definition of woman
Sure.
and man.
Yes. What is your definition of woman?
Um, I want to just keep it the same as it's been, that a woman is a female and a man is a male.
Okay,
Everyone just uses them interchangeably anyway.
that's
That's what
fine.
they mean.
Would you classify me as a male?
I think so, right?
Okay. No hiding. I'm nominally normal cis male physically. Everything normal. That
Okay.
within boundaries. And I have an unusually long beard. Uh, that's more male. Anyway, no, that's a gendered thing. Anyway, so I have a friend who is physically absolutely as male as I, whom I call a woman. And for clarity, I call a trans woman. Would you agree that my friend is a trans woman?
I don't actually like using the term trans woman because how can you then say a trans woman isn't a woman? Because you just said the word woman with a
Yes,
qualifier in front of it.
right.
So that
If
would
we say
imply a trans
your
woman is a
version,
woman.
your version of woman is my term, cis woman. If
Right.
I need to be specific, if
Right.
if I needed to be specific because I'm in a doctor's office, I might say my friend Jamie is going to their doctor who specializes in trans women, and you would not be concerned. You would not be confused at all.
I wouldn't be confused, but
Very
I
good.
think that language does have a powerful uh, it has a power in culture. And
Yes,
so we're going to
absolutely.
just kind of automatically think the
Yes,
way that we use the words.
yes.
So
I
I
understand your
hesitate to use the word
resistance.
trans woman.
I understand your resistance to calling her a woman because you say it has connotation and gives people the wrong impression and somehow is misinforming and all those things. I get your
Mhm.
point. What word would you prefer that I use in referring to Jamie?
Gender confused man.
I will not. I do not think they are gender confused. I would be insulting my friend if I pointed out something that they are trying to mask or de-emphasize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It would be rude for me to publicly say how well I think they are passing or not. Do you
Mm-hmm.
agree? Do you agree that that would be rude?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give me another term that I could use that is not trans woman that would not be rude or a slur to my friend?
Trans person.
That hides the information of which direction they are attempting to
Mm-hmm.
portray.
Yeah.
And I
It.
think that's actually an important bit of information that of their identity that they would like you to know. By saying trans person, you've just said trans.
Mm-hmm. Or M2F.
Do you understand M2F transsexual as trans woman being the same in my understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
M2F
just a style.
transsexual, yeah, M2F transsexual would be like, why are you speaking in such weird terms? But
Right.
I will say that is not a slur. I will accept referring to Jamie as an M2F transsexual for the remainder of this conversation.
Okay. I thought transsexual wasn't allowed anymore.
It isn't, but it's not a slur. It's just a weird medical term because people got connotations on it. There's a problem that I think of as euphemism creep, where instead of having a word that is a slur, we replace it with something that isn't. And then that thing becomes a slur. So we replace it with something that isn't. And that thing becomes a slur ad
Mm-hmm.
nauseum.
Yeah, it used to be cripple, but now you're not supposed to say that. So then you say handicap, but now that's a new thing that you're
You're
not
on
supposed to say
YouTube. You might
handicap
want to watch
anymore.
that.
What?
You're on
Oh,
YouTube. You're
I have a
pushing.
daughter in a wheelchair,
I
so I
don't
get a pass.
care. That's no excuse. You're on YouTube. Watch it.
Well,
The automation will clip you.
oh, really? For saying
You
CRIPLE?
leave it out of this conversation. It'll serve you better. Just check it out later for yourself.
Crazy.
This is not
I need
freedom of
to
speech
look up
land. This is YouTube.
a list of words you're not allowed to say.
And it's much more complex than that. It's an algorithm, and you're pushing it with this conversation already.
That's true. I'm getting banned before I even get
Don't
started.
even mention medical issues of the last several years. Please don't even say them.
Oh, the coof. I managed to keep my Facebook up through all of that.
Good job.
And my friend was like, "Stop with the eggplants." And I'm like, "Well, what emoji am I supposed to use?"
Whatever.
Using oranges and eggplants.
As I say, euphemism creep when you haven't got a better term. Ah,
Uh-huh.
and now there's some fruit I'm not supposed to serve at weddings. Anyway, please continue.
Okay. Yeah, I call it just putting lipstick on a pig. It's like the thing still sucks that my daughter can't walk. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It
Right.
matters more the attitude you have while saying
Yeah.
it.
You are digging heavily in your rhetoric that I've read of your work and seen into using what I see as slurs and insults
Mhm.
in your work. I
Mhm.
think my lipstick is your bucket of paint.
Mhm. That
Now,
was kind of the point of
I
the
I
article.
I I wanna I'm gonna also throw that same bucket of paint on the other. Let's see, to to the other side. That's that way. To the other side and say the extremists on that share most of my alignments, many of them throw paint around very freely, and I'm very annoyed with them. I think they set my position back by giving bad modeling.
Yeah,
Naughty.
it's true.
Speaking to them.
People like
Speaking to
Blair
them.
White, and Caitlyn Jenner are
Okay.
more like moderate trans activists.
Hmm.
And if
They are
all
not seen as such. They are seen as the bellenders.
right. If they were the norm, I think transgender issues would be way more accepted in society. I think because it's gotten so extreme so quickly that the pushback is harder.
Okay.
And I think that if everybody was more chill, like Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner, that it would be more accepted in
I
society.
really do appreciate Blair White and Caitlyn Jenner for reaching across the ideological lines and connecting with you. They are, in the trans community, pariahs.
Yeah.
They are not well received at all. I really
Right.
respect where they're going. I'm not very well politically aligned with either of them. But again, I like to reach across aisles. So political alignment is not an exclusion criteria for me. It might be an attractant, or I should say political misalignment. Please continue.
But I find them even more dangerous than those transgender activists that people look at and go, look at how crazy those people are. Because they would get society to the place that they want it to go, that I don't want it to go.
Okay, so let me define a term and say, and I'm going to use a pejorative term in your favor and call them clowns.
We use clown world all the time for the more extreme people, but okay.
Okay. And I'm just going to define a category of people who are clowning around for reasons not well aligned with their stated political goals in order to get attention and stir shit up. Okay. And I personally, in my own head, I'm clowns. I'm not painting with a broad brush here, but I'm just going to say there's a category of clowns, and you're saying that they're more dangerous than Caitlyn and Brianna, help me.
Blair.
Blair, thank you.
Blair and Caitlyn. Well, yeah. I think that they're more effective, therefore they're more dangerous.
The trans cons are effective.
The more moderate they are.
Oh, so sorry. The Blair and Caitlyn are more effective than the clowns.
Right.
Thank you. That's what I completely agree.
Right. So that makes me even more like, I'm glad that they, it bothers me that they are so accepted on the right. So like Caitlyn Jenner is going on Fox News and Blair White is going on like right-wing things. And I'm like, no, don't. It's just the camel's nose under the tent. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Oh my God.
Yes, thank you. Yes. We completely agree.
We need Jesus.
Okay. How would Jesus handle this today?
He would say, repent and sin no more.
Okay.
Okay, so we know the definition of a woman. Did we get a definition? Oh, okay. So we got our definition of a woman is basically female.
We left that misspelling thing, verses, like you were going to throw a lot of Bible at me. I haven't seen it. This is the first reference to anything Bible we've had.
I don't like, so I feel like Ben Shapiro's like, I don't want to use the Bible to justify my political beliefs because not everybody believes in the Bible.
Your political beliefs. I'm interested in the reasons you believe things, not whether I should believe those things.
I think I had this opinion before I became Christian.
Still,
I think it's more I became Christian because of this more than the other way around.
Okay, that's fascinating to me. How much does the Bible influence your morality, and how much does your morality influence your selectivity in applying the Bible?
The second one. The second one.
The second one. Okay, so the
Yeah.
Bible is not your spiritual or moral authority.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful for me. That shortcuts 70% of my theological training, and that's fine. I can use it with someone else.
It's helpful that there are those few lines about not cross-dressing, but there's also lines in there about not eating shrimp. You know, but
Yeah, if you're not holding it as an authority, it doesn't pass the real reason check, so I don't really care about it for street epistemology.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Now, by the way, speaking to anybody who's thinking in street epistemology terms, the skills are here. You might recognize I'm doing some things that are SE, but this is not SE recipe. It's SE adjacent. Please continue.
okay, so did we get our definition of what a woman was?
Mm-hmm. We got your definition of what a woman was. We didn't get to mine, which is just the one you would exactly expect, and that is a woman to me is the label that a person puts upon themselves for the gender they are attempting to express in public, should that be the female gender. So they would say, I'm a woman. And
You
in
just said
most
female
cases,
gender.
what's that?
You just said female gender.
Yes, I did. I said the feminine gender is woman, is feminine, is and so a woman is one who expresses the feminine gender publicly and wants you to treat her as such publicly, and will certainly add the word trans or MTF or any of those other things to it in the contexts where that should matter. At the DMV is not one of those contexts. If you're pulled over as a trans woman, you should be treated in every way as a woman, and your transness should not be noticed or commented on.
What if you're arrested?
It doesn't matter.
Which side of the prison should you be put on? The male side or the female side?
Where you are safe, and if prisons are unsafe because they are putting people together that are unsafe with each other, they should fix that. Walls are cheap.
We should fix that.
Okay.
But in the
Just like
meantime,
individual stalls and not open urinals in bathrooms are cheap, way cheaper than having two separate bathrooms.
but in the
We can wash our
meantime,
hands together.
but
You
in
and
the
me.
meantime, where our prison
Oh,
system sucks.
and close the bottom of the stall, okay? Stop with the peeky. No, make the stalls private, okay? Give them actual useful locks. Maybe those locks have a timer so you're not sleeping in there, okay? But seriously, make bathrooms a place where we respect privacy and not just shove all the genders together. I just want you to put yourself in the mind, if you will, of a gay person
Mm-hmm.
in a school, in the locker room,
Mm-hmm.
in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that for a minute. Is that fair? How hard are individual showers? How hard is
Yeah,
privacy?
I've never showered in a communal shower.
Huh, okay. Well, maybe schools are better now. That's great.
I mean,
Okay.
we didn't
But
shower
but,
at
but, this,
school.
but this kind of thing, if we as a society were not hung up on nudity, it would be a no big thing. I love Japan. I loved being in the bathhouses in Japan because their hung upness on nudity allowed family things. And our grandma was watching me bathe. And who gives a crap? It's fine. They didn't have a thing going on about it. Now, here we do. It is unfair to put a minor under social pressure to exhibit social nudity, gender or sex unwithstanding. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Thanks for tolerating it.
You have a point. I'm not going to deny that. But in the meantime, while we do have prisons the way that they are, where should we put being.
I'm with you on this. That there's a fundamental problem that isn't even about trans. It's about all humans. That we should not put them in a bowl and give them a fork. Okay, we should not take the worst among us and take the ones who have just barely tripped and shove them in the same room and make them fight it out. That's
Mm-hmm.
inhumane. That's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
We should have gotten rid of that since the Romans. I mean, what the hell? And I'm
You know
talking
that
about
show.
Romans, not my current friends in Italy.
You know that show Orange is the New Black?
Mm-hmm.
I read the book. The book is
Mm,
very boring.
mm,
Nothing happens. It's
mm.
all women in a minimum security prison. There's no violence. There's no fighting.
Okay,
None at
lousy
all.
for fiction, great for reality. Oh my
They
gosh.
they had to add a lot of stuff in.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I really enjoyed the show. What I saw of it,
um,
I maybe watch that one.
but I don't think that we should be putting males in the female prison. I think they should be sex segregated instead of gender segregated.
I think they should be segregated for their safety and
Mm-hmm.
allowed to interact through appropriate barriers
Mm-hmm.
in which their natural, much greater predisposition toward violence because of the selectivity of that population can uh, can be managed in a way that we as a society can be proud of.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And then
Um,
this whole question of which it doesn't matter anymore. When you go to the hospital, do you need to have a gender segregated ward? No. You've got people of they're in hospital beds. You're treating them the same. Now you're paying attention to their differences, of course. The doctors and nurses are aware of what they're giving them, but
what are you going to do about a woman who gets pregnant in prison?
I'm really fine for controlled, uh, uh, consensual sex in prison between prisoners under the right conditions and with people outside under the right conditions. I think coitus, if somebody has that in their life, is a right that we shouldn't take away from them. And fine.
What if they get pregnant?
Yeah, so they get pregnant. What net?
But then what happens when they give birth?
Uh, well, that's probably a ward of the state thing. So therefore, if you're going to allow it, you probably want to include contraception in the plan. You want to really discourage
Are you
getting
going to
pregnant.
force them to take birth control?
If they are doing the ritual of the consensual sex opportunity, yes, because that's a scheduled thing. And you have to
But
sign up for the room and it's visitors passes and there's a whole bunch of hoops that you have to jump through.
but if they're allowed to have sex with each other
Yes.
and
The same situation. They can apply for a room. They can get a room. And as long as nothing bad happens, they can do it again.
okay, so are the trans people
The people.
going to
There's no
go with
distinction
the
at this point. This isn't about trans. This isn't
so
exclusive
the
trans.
male and the female population can
All the people.
intermingle?
All the people may intermingle through appropriate security barriers. It might turn out that people can't hug, but they can shake hands because they can't reach, because they can't get to the other side of that transparent wall.
So is
I mean,
every person going to be in their own cell separated, or are they
as needed,
going?
yes. And those people that can prove that they are safe in a more mixed population can apply for and qualify for that privilege. They're never in
So
solitary. They can see other people through transparent barriers that prevent the violence.
so an M to F who is in
Whoever, none of
prison
this is
for
about trans again.
raping, who is in prison for raping women, would
It
basically
doesn't matter
apply for
trans.
this and not be allowed to.
I'm again, this is not about trans. This is a rapist. If a rapist applies, I can certainly see that if there is a system in place to allow consensual sex, somebody who is there for a sex crime might have additional hoops to jump through. But I don't think it would be a complete showstopper. It might be a difference on the parole or coitus review board. Obviously, this is rife for lots of abuse, but
Right.
let me start by putting it in place, and then let's tune it.
So, but the women have to be on birth control.
Yeah, that might be the rule. The women have to have effective birth control before they can opt in to sex with a fertile male.
And
understand, there's a difference. If the person they're applying to have sex with can't impregnate them,
right.
Box checked.
So,
STD panels, box checking.
So birth control fails.
Yes.
You know,
And
I have
we
friends who have
accept that
6
difference of risk.
children.
Yeah,
Not
happens.
a single one planned.
Wait, 6 children? In this situation, you're ridiculous.
I know 2
1.
women.
I mean, come on.
I know 2 women. Maybe 1 or 2 was planned, but
You've jumped the shark. You're now in a completely different situation. I'm talking about a controlled situation over here, and you're talking about somebody who can't figure out how to do birth control. I had 5
just
children.
didn't work.
I understand. Please continue.
It just didn't work. I don't know.
It
Sometimes
matter.
it doesn't work.
We take that risk.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
The
So
box
what happens?
Not, it works 100%. The box is we have done due diligence to mitigate the risk, and we will take the additional risk. We can handle extra children in this country.
So what happens?
We have plenty of room for people we have plenty of room for extra babies that mamas can't take care of this year.
So women who are in prison who have a baby, the baby should be taken from them?
They can't keep a baby in prison.
Some prisons do that.
Then I'm all in favor. Absolutely. If there's a mother and a baby and they can be imprisoned, take care of society's needs for protecting society and whatever reason society has put them there, while allowing them to take care of their child in a way that's healthy for the child, I'm all for it. I don't want to diss a prisoner. I don't want to take away their human rights that I don't have to. Imprisonment is a terrible, terrible, apparently lesser of all evils that we use constantly. I mean, and to be clear, the U.S. imprisons a greater fraction of its population than any other first world nation.
We are now number 2.
Excellent. I'm glad we're losing that race.
We are no longer number 1.
Fantastic. Who's number 1 now?
I think it's Ecuador.
Okay.
They just built gigantic prison, and they're just rounding up anybody with a tattoo who they think might be a gang member and just throwing them in because they're sick of the violence.
So it sounds to me like corruption and high imprisonment rates are at least correlated. Okay. Sorry, not one to take us off topic. Please continue. I appreciate you tolerating my soapbox and occasional my passionate interruptions, and I'll try to keep that to a minute.
I think that we should just have prisons that are male and female, and I don't think we should have male guards watching females, and I don't think we should have female guards watching males. It should be totally separate.
Do I have gay prisons?
What?
Can I have gay prisons?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have male, female, gay, lesbian. How many different prisons do I need?
I didn't mean like, I mean like the male prison becomes the gay prison.
None of your conversion therapy bullshit. No. You are converting heterosexual people to gay people, and we don't want them. They don't sex nice.
There's a scale. If you're on the scale, I mean, these things are
okay. We can talk about Kenzie, absolutely. But if you are trying to take heterosexual people and encourage them to adopt a gay lifestyle, yes, you are. You just did. You just set up the situation. You just said those prisons are gay prisons now because it's the only choices they have. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, well, technically, I mean, joking aside, technically, prisoners can't consent. They can't consent to guards, and they can't consent to other prisoners. So ideally, there wouldn't be any sex happening at all. And there would have to be more
Yeah.
safeguards in the
Your
male
my ideals
prison.
on this are completely opposed. So thanks.
Yeah,
We know we
to
disagree. And let's go
the
back to
less
trans
sex, the
because this
better.
is so not about trans. It is about civil rights, so I'm interested, but it's so not about trans.
Well, we do have the problem where there are prisons that are placing M to F, some of whom still have their male functionality in their sperm, going into female prisons and impregnating females.
They should fix that. They shouldn't
So
have.
you're against that?
Mine is extremely clear that I want prisoners to not be able to, in an uncontrolled way, impregnate or rape each other. I don't know how I can be more clear about that. I'm willing to overhaul the entire prison system and potentially make it cost more. I don't think it would cost more. I think you'll save money on guards. The walls are cheap, guards are expensive. The I don't think it would cost more, but I am willing to make it cost twice as much to get to my goal of prison risk rape, not some funny joke anymore. Okay. And I
Right.
said rape on YouTube. Oh my God.
Great. So
Right now,
I
go
just
to
lost my
prison,
train
get
of thought.
raped is an unfunny joke.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Um
And we need to fucking fix that. Okay.
and it used to only be for men. Now the women not only have to worry about the prison guards, they also have to worry
But
about
wait,
males.
I'm gonna so SE and say I'm gonna violate my rules so hard and say, heck no, sexual violence in women's prisons has not been less. It's in a different category because of the way they define penetration. Okay, it's just as big a joke. Okay, and it's just as bad a problem, really.
You think
But
that
again,
women are sexually
my
assaulting each
point, you
other?
don't have to accept my point for us to agree that there's definitely a problem. I'm just saying the problem is much deeper and older than you're admitting. And I don't need you to accept my point.
No,
Please
I
continue.
do admit that it is a problem, but I think that our current zeitgeist of we have to totally change society for the good of this very small population of trans people and bend over backwards and make accommodations for them, even so far as giving them access to victims in prisons, is
Right.
really, really bad.
We are so agreed. I don't want to give them access to prisons. And it's not about trans because I want to protect everybody. I don't want to focus on trans for that purpose. The problem is not a trans problem. It's a trans exception to a problem that we've accepted that we shouldn't be tolerating anymore.
Right. And another question is, how can we tell? I guess your solution, it wouldn't really matter,
Wouldn't
but there
matter.
is this question of how do you
Human
tell
rights. I don't need to
between,
know what's in your pants in order to treat you nice.
right? How do you tell between a cis male who is lying about being trans
I
and
don't care. It has no legal weight.
so we should set up society so that it doesn't matter.
Right. It should have no legal weight.
So what about
And if it has no legal weight, then we're back to, does the doctor need to know? And that's a nuanced, good discussion. And I say the DMV doesn't need to know, and the statisticians do. Okay, there you are.
So if we just basically get rid of single sex spaces and we just have like single use bathrooms and things of that nature.
I'm not hardcore against single sex spaces. I'm not hardcore against blue-eyed, red-haired people only spaces if they want that. I think that's within their freedom. And I think the government should be prohibited from ever setting up something like that. And to a great degree, where any group wants to get together for any reason, society should give them a little bit of the side eye if we see them as a threat. We should be watching them. We should
See
be
who is a
watching
threat.
any group that is getting insular and exclusive. We should be watching their motivations. Those are the groups that are the dangerous ones. Not all of them, only a few of them. But almost all of the dangerous ones are in groups that look just like that. They are the ones to watch.
So what about like a new Boy Scout and Girl Scout organization that
Observation.
does not allow?
Sunlight takes care of all of this. As long as everybody can see in, nobody's worried. Have your thing. Go ahead. Absolutely. Divide yourself up by any means you want. If you start down the Nazi thing, is that the right word? If you start down the fascist path, or if you start down the we're going to take over the world path, now I'm watching you, and I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm going to call you out, and I got a spotlight, and you're gonna every morning wake up to a journalist in your door.
So that's the problem with having coercive government is if you're
government. That wasn't government.
Right. No,
okay,
but
good. So we're agreed. The government shouldn't be doing that. That should be society doing that. That should be the media. That should be activists like myself.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem with coercive government is that they say you can't have your thing. You have to do it our way. Like, for example, in my city, it's illegal to discriminate against trans people.
Right.
And so a single sex space is illegal in my city.
Right. It's illegal if supported by government money.
All private, even private businesses.
Okay, if it's a business that's providing services to the public under the business license of normal public stuff, yes, because the Commerce Clause requires that the government say that we provide equal commerce opportunity to all people, regardless of their status in these protected groups. That's a law of the land.
I would like there to be able to be a gym that says this is the male locker room, this is the female locker room. If you have a penis, you are not allowed to go in the female locker room.
Those are called private gyms. And in your private gym, you could make it whites only.
That's illegal.
No, it is not.
I'm 99% sure that I'm right.
I can tell you which ones they are. I can tell you their address. I can drive you there. I can drive you there in multiple cities.
Do you remember the Wi Spa incident?
No, sorry. Tell me the story.
Okay, so there was this viral video of this woman. She was like recording in the lobby, and she was like, "There's a dude in the." So the way the spa is, it's like a Asian spa where like it's like a bathhouse type thing, and there's
question. Is this open to the public or is it a private membership only club?
I don't know.
Okay, that is the distinction that I'm making. That makes it whether the Commerce Clause says that the rules apply for how you have to conduct a business that is open to the public in my state. Or
so like country. Costco.
Yeah. That's a business that's open to the public in the state.
No, Costco, you have to get a membership.
It's not an invitation only kind of thing. Anybody can apply. They are not allowed. They are absolutely not allowed to discriminate against you if you say, "Hi, I'm black. I want a Costco card."
Right.
Do you agree? Then they're under the Commerce Clause.
It's illegal to discriminate against black people.
Yes, it is. They're in that protected list of classes, and trans people is too.
Some places.
Everywhere.
Not in all places. Marijuana
is illegal federally, but it's legal in California where I am. So I agree that legal is nuanced. You might have state laws that are against it, but the federal law that I'm referring to of the Commerce Clause applies to everyone, and you can go to court with the state to fight it out over cakes.
Right.
And go for it. By all means, fight this out. That's what I'm trying to encourage.
I think that a private business
without violence. Pardon?
I think that a private business should be able to do what they want. I think that a private business
vote for that.
Whether they're well, I think the Commerce Clause is BS.
Then get the
I
Commerce
think
Clause changed. We're in agreement.
yeah,
That's how you should do it. I will vote against you, and that'll
we
be
could just
fine.
get
We'll
rid of
work
the
it out.
federal government. That'd be cool with me.
You're now I'm voting harder. I don't want you to get rid of the federal government, especially because you don't like
It
the way that
doesn't
they
do
handle Commerce
anything
Clause around trans
anyway.
people. I think you're throwing,
Oh, you froze.
but maybe you have better reasons.
The federal, you wouldn't
Sorry.
even notice if the federal government was gone. It would be fine. They don't do anything
I'm not going to
anyway.
dignify that with an answer. Please continue.
Let's go to a comment. What is the underlying cause that makes a person decide they are trans? Is it genetic coding or a disease state called gender dysphoria or something else?
I don't know. I'm not sure that gender dysphoria is necessarily a disease state. I've had body dysphoria for most of my life over my weight, and that's not a disease state. And because I'm public about this. This isn't private medical. Because when I got to diabetes and recognized the actual threat to my lifespan, my motivations shifted, and now I've lost a lot of weight. And now I no longer have body dysphoria about my weight. That's not a disease. Anyway,
Okay.
just the comment on body dysphoria. If you don't like what your body is and you can change it, sometimes that's perfectly okay and healthy.
Sometimes people have body dysmorphia and they're really skinny and they think they need to lose more weight and more weight and more weight until they die.
That's where you have a disease, when what you've done is you've gotten enough disproportionate in your, in that case, perceptions, that you have body dysphoria, whichever word that is.
Right.
Copy and replace in the post. Anyway, edit all this out. Sorry, I got lost.
Okay.
The point is not whether you have dysmorphia. That isn't necessarily diseasing. I think the categorization is like in the DSM. It has to be something that's messing with your life. It's in your way. It's a problem for you for it to qualify as a disease. Otherwise, it's just the normal variation. Maybe even coping.
Okay. I think that there's like a confusion here between like, I don't see gender on a spectrum. I see gender as the binary that matches with sex. But there is a spectrum of masculine and feminine.
Yes.
And people can live on a spectrum anywhere on there, and it has nothing to do with whether they are a male, female, man, or a woman.
Nope. It absolutely has something to do with it. The difference that you are concerned about is that difference. It's how society matches the behaviors with their expectations, and how some people are very disturbed when that is not matched, and they see fraud, and they see deception, and they see threat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is
it doesn't
the distinction.
have nothing to do with it.
Absolutely has to do with it. It's the point we're talking about. Please continue.
They do have something to do with each other. I wasn't using precise language, but they
right. And I'm only picking where I think it matters, and I hope I'm doing so in a friendly way.
That's fine. But you can be a feminine man, and you can be a masculine woman, and it doesn't change your sex. You still are the sex that you are.
Absolutely.
And so not fulfilling your gender role, your stereotypical gender role, to me does not make you any less of a man or a woman.
Right, because you're only looking at sex.
Right.
Right. So let's take the word man and woman completely out of it. Try to avoid those terms entirely, and pick the term that describes those people who aren't cis.
Mm-hmm.
And I just mean cis in that they fit with your natural expectations traditionally. Please give me those terms. And now let's try to humanize those people.
In those gender non-conforming person.
Okay, so gender non-conforming people.
Right.
So I have gender non-conforming friends. To a degree, I'm gender non-conforming myself. I estimate about 20%.
I have a wide range of tolerance in
Yeah.
gender non-conforming.
Good.
I have a very wide spectrum of being okay with that.
Great. So now, keeping it to adults, I know you'd like to talk about children because that's probably the reasons that actually inflame your concern. Speaking to adults, because so far we haven't brought children into this, that for them, if they did not adopt the word woman, do you have any objections to anything else they're doing?
As long as women are still allowed to have their female only safe spaces, their sports, and
They're
female
allowed
only
that as much as
spaces.
they're allowed before, with or without trans. Do you agree?
I don't like the anti-discrimination laws.
Okay. If you're talking about as long as we throw away all the anti-discrimination laws and then is a very different thing than do you object to their behaviors now under the current circumstance as long as they don't force the adoption of the term woman to describe my friend Jamie?
I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So
When I ask the question, I'm saying, what objection do you have to my friend and their whole category of people behavior
okay,
choices,
behaviors.
as
Um,
long as we exclude them insisting on the man woman word? If we just put that word aside
right.
completely, do you have any other objections to their behavior given
Right.
the current legal situation, not the one you want?
I don't want them to try to go into female only spaces.
Okay.
Bathrooms, locker rooms, any such spaces.
Where should they go? Let's
They
assume
most
that they're
places,
not in a place, let's assume that they're in a place where they need to pee or
right?
poo or whatever.
Most
And
places have a single occupancy bathroom. They should
okay, so we now have
use
3
that
bathrooms.
one,
We have
or
men, women, and
most
other.
most places do start. This is they have a family room, or like some schools
Okay.
they said that the trans kids could use the
Just for time, I
nurse's
want to cut to the
bathroom.
end of this, and say I am firmly in favor, as I said earlier, about
Hmm.
private stalls for everybody. I
Hmm.
think it's cheaper than 2 bathrooms, and we can wash our
Hmm.
hands together and
Hmm.
not be afraid. Now, given
But
that,
with the
now,
architecture we have now,
right, with the architecture that we have now, what should my friend do when they need to pee and there's only the
use the men's
2
room.
available?
Use the men's room.
Fuck you.
I think that
Sorry, that was way outside of SE, but seriously, I'll
well,
tell you to use the men's room because you don't look feminine enough to me. I'm playing, okay? Please don't take this personally. How dare you, who aren't pretty enough, come into our bathroom? Go use the men's room, you man-looking woman, you. What do
you
you
know
like?
that clip from Mean Girls where they're like, "You can't sit with us."
Yeah, yeah.
That's how I feel about
Why is
trans
that
people. You
okay?
can't sit with
This isn't.
us.
By the way, I'm no longer using anything like a logical argument. I'm going
Right.
directly for an emotional appeal, and
Right.
hopefully you'll allow my role play.
Okay.
Why do you get to do that? Why do you think that that's okay?
Because society is more important than the individual.
Fuck you.
The majority is more important
Yeah, you're a
than the
libertarian, and you're a
minority.
bad libertarian, and you should not ever be saying something like society is more important than the freedom of
I
the
get that a lot.
individual. I
I
mean,
get that a lot.
seriously. You what?
Yeah. I get that a lot. I'm
Yeah,
a
that's
collectivist
completely
libertarian.
that is so inconsistent of you.
Actually, it's not, because I prescribe to the non-aggression principle. I do not want to do violence to anyone unless it's in self-defense in the strictest terms.
Yeah.
I want to be free to have spaces where I can have the social norms that I'm comfortable with. And I would prefer to be in spaces where males have to go to the male room and females can go in the female room. And if you have a penis, you are not allowed in the female only
Yeah,
space.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm comfortable with.
I hear
I
you.
understand
And
that
you
other
suck.
people don't like that.
And you just suck. You're just mean people. Seriously, that
I'm
is
so
that is
mean.
so rude. My
I'm so
God.
intolerant.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for owning
am.
it. Thanks for being proud of it.
I
And that's the
think
stop on
that
and that's the last I'm gonna bash on you about it. You've heard it. I don't need to be repetitive.
it's important to have boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Because I understand why society has gone down this road of being more and more nice and accepting and tolerant,
Yeah.
but there are consequences to that
Nah.
that
Yeah,
that we're now
your
seeing.
consequences are unproportional, and I'm completely unconvinced. At this point, I'm not interested in your boundaries.
That's a little rapey.
Yeah? Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look who's doing the work. Look who's doing the pushy. Look whose side is raising the stakes.
What do you mean?
It's called the transgender genocide. There are a lot of my trans friends who are very, very concerned about what you are doing. At least as passionate as you.
I don't want to genocide anyone.
They think so. I don't agree with their terms, but I think you are far more in the wrong about their hyperbole than you are.
Can you explain to me, like in specifics, what the trans genocide that is feared?
On
Do
another
they think that it's happening or that it's
on
feared
another
to
live
come?
stream. Yeah. Yes, I do want to have that conversation with you. And at 100 minutes in, we can't start. We can't start on that. It's too deep. It's too far down the rabbit hole.
Okay,
And
let me ask
I'm
this.
kind of coming to wrapping up on and conclusioning. I've spent my wad.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
If we separate the idea from the person,
Yes. Oh, I love
and
that.
you know what Michael Knowles
That's rule
said?
number 2 at TMRO, by the way. Talk to the idea, not the person.
Right.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
Michael Knowles said in a speech that transgenderism should be eliminated from society, something like that. And then people clipped that and said, "Oh, he wants to genocide trans people." And
Well,
so and he
that's what they
clarified
mean.
that he meant the idea. So if
Yes,
we
that's what they mean too.
separate, right, if we separate the idea from the person,
Yeah.
and we say we want these people to be living healthy, happy lives, but we want them to we want them to not be trans anymore.
Right.
We want to get rid of the
That's what it means.
idea that you can change your gender.
Yep.
We want to go back to the way things were before 8 years ago, where your sex is your gender and it can't be changed.
8 years is too funny for me. Please continue.
Why is that funny?
Because I taught photography and Photoshop at the LA Gay and Lesbian Center starting over 20 years ago.
Mainstream culture didn't accept it until 8 years ago.
I don't give a crap about your mainstream culture. You over there in the Bible Belt, in your next to the Westboro over there, are just too insular, too stuck in your echo chamber to see the average or the anything else. You're too freaking blinded to be able to say 8 years with anything but, wow, that's when I noticed. Okay, you don't know, but that's okay, because fine. I'm just finding this 8-year thing to be funny, like saying we discovered evolution in the 60s and don't mean the 1860s. Okay, you're just wrong. You're wrong
I
by
mean,
orders of magnitude
I know
wrong.
that trans people always existed in even small numbers, but I
Yeah,
mean, mainstream
you're
social
comparing this
acceptance.
to this and then saying nuance. Uh, please just take that I think you're an order of magnitude wrong, and we don't need to it's not important to your point, because your point doesn't hinge on whether it's 8 or 80. Okay, that's not the important point at all. So
Right. I'm talking about social
it's just
acceptance,
this
like
side
legal and social
distraction
acceptance.
of throwing in something that is like, I mean, it's not like flat Earth bad, but it's like, we've invented cars in the 1990s. What the hell? No, you're just. Please continue.
Okay, but I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, before 8 years ago, we didn't have legal and social acceptance of the idea that you could change your gender. I'm sure in California it was different, but here in Kansas, not so much. Would you say that if we just did what I wanted to do and all trans people just stopped being trans and they were healthy and happy, just imagine hypothetically,
No.
would you call that a trans
Oh no!
genocide?
Just no. Just
No.
no. How about if gay people just stop being gay? Okay.
What if we found a
What the
cure? What if we
hell? What are
found a
you
pill that
talking
made
about?
people not gay anymore?
What the hell are you talking about? Trans people not being
Well,
trans anymore?
imagine tomorrow
No,
they come out with
I don't
a
care.
cure.
I don't know. It's not a disease. You don't need to
Okay.
cure it. They're not wrong. They're not broken. You're broken. Your society is broken by not allowing people to do what should be your freedom. You libertarian fool.
I think that people
Seriously.
should be able to do what they want.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, and except for here, and
No,
you are
I think they should be able to
inconsistent.
do what they want.
You are inconsistent.
I'm not inconsistent.
Yes, your values are expressed inconsistently. The values that you express in one area lead to reasons that you should have a completely different conclusion in this area.
Because social
This is
norms
so
aren't
not
violence.
This is so not
Yes. But social norms aren't violence.
Your kind of social norms are violence.
Well, we have to
They
define
put
violence
people
then.
in prison. We are equivalating. We are saying that when you pass laws for things and breaking those laws puts you in prison, that's violence.
I don't want to pass any laws against transgender
You do.
adults.
Yes, you do.
What law?
Everything that you've been talking about has been law.
What do you mean? I don't want them to be arrested unless they're attacking someone. I don't think nonviolent people should be arrested.
If I'm, perhaps I've misunderstood you that far.
Maybe
it
that
really
might be
seems
why.
to me like you're talking about voting and throwing away the governments that don't have the rules that you don't like, and this law and this change and this and this government and this social structure and the forcing of these people and they shouldn't be allowed to. And what the heck?
It's hard to wrap your mind around.
And let me completely withdraw that you even been talking about law, and I don't give a crap because I hate your solution.
Yeah, which is
I
why
hate
we
what
should
you want
be
to do
able.
to people.
I don't want to do anything to anybody.
Little Greta Thunberg. Am I doing the Greta Thunberg? Okay.
How dare you?
How dare you?
I don't want to do anything to anybody. I just want to be left alone to have the social norms that I'm comfortable with.
Then why do you give a crap whether Jamie uses a women's restroom?
Well, if somebody who is obviously male,
no, I have not described Jamie. I've not given you enough information. You don't know.
I'm not saying anything specifically about Jamie.
I'm talking,
if somebody is obviously male, and we
I don't care.
Establish that there's males and females.
No, you cannot say if. I have not given you an if. If Jamie, and you don't know what Jamie looks like. No, maybe you do.
Oh, you just send me pictures.
You do. Okay.
It depends. How tall is this person?
Okay, ignore that. I'm going to
the
give you
height
somebody
matters.
to listen, Jamie. I'm going to make somebody up.
If okay, my friend let's make up Kim, a hypothetical person that is obviously Kim, a male.
No. My friend Kim, and you can't tell at all, male or female.
If I can't tell, then I can't tell.
You can't tell.
Right.
Which bathroom should they use?
If I can't tell, then nobody can tell. And they would basically
now what should they do?
to be able to get away with it.
Okay, then we're done.
But a lot
what you're saying is you want a law that says people that don't pass well enough have to use the wrong bathroom. And that's my summary. People. We're good. I think we've summarized.
Use the correct
Did I get it right? No, you said if they pass well enough, it's fine. And if they don't pass well enough, they have to use the wrong bathroom, the one they don't want to use, the one that's going to give them the most social problem.
Bathroom.
Yeah, I don't give a crap about your idea about correct. Am I correctly summarizing your position? Have I understood you correctly? And am I giving it back to you correctly?
Almost.
Go ahead.
They should use the correct bathroom that aligns with their biological sex.
Yeah, okay.
And if they pass, they can basically get away with it.
Okay. So how was yours different than what I said?
I don't think they should be like in the rules. Like if you pass, you can go to the women's bathroom.
Okay. Thank you. They should, and it shouldn't be in the rules, but it should be the way it's done. And
well, effectively, like how rules are enforced. Ideally, you would live
rules like this will be enforced by people who take it upon themselves to be vigilantes. Okay?
Oh no.
If you put this rule in place, I don't care what the badges do. I care about what the people without badges do. They're 1,000 times more dangerous.
True. I'm not going to argue against that point. But I think that it's up to the property owner. A lot of these stores, they have security. It's up to the property owner to decide what their rules are and how they enforce it. Now you've
just created a huge situation of public safety by having different standards in different places that are unwritten, that are unclear. And now the trans people are a lot more afraid of their life in a city that you're anywhere near.
Hey, you can do what you want in your city.
You are violating public safety by this standard.
Well, public safety.
You're going to get people killed with that shit.
Get people killed? How?
Because vigilantes will kill somebody if they think the rule is that they shouldn't be whatevering in whatever bathroom, and you're supporting that bullshit.
We haven't seen that happen a single time.
You are encouraging violence against trans people.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. By setting up those rules and encouraging people in your community that are packing.
People that those people will act
based on those things that you're setting up in your moral government to be immoral to somebody who's not in your moral government. You are starting a war.
Come on now. By having
in anything like what your side is doing in rhetoric and my side is doing in rhetoric. I'm giving you a taste of what that is. And hopefully you can see it as a role play.
I've seen the violence coming from the trans side. I've seen the Christian school get shot up and 3 children be shot by a trans person. This is becoming a hot war. And so far there has not been one vigilante cis man or woman who has done violence to a trans woman for using the women's bathroom or anything like that. Not a single instance of that vigilante justice. But we've seen it the other way. We had somebody here in Kansas.
The audience, do you find that claim credible? And with that, I ask you to summarize and close.
All right, there's 2 comments. You want to read them?
Oh, yes, please.
Dolly, I'm really digging how you are explaining things in terms that I can understand clearly and completely without being ambiguous.
Thank you.
That was posted back when we were doing the definition.
And please don't take this tone that I've adopted in the last half hour as my intention. it was there to explore something that I thought Rochelle wanted to get into and reflect it honestly as I see it from my community, in the emotional words of my community, and please just take it as me like throwing slurs and acting that out. Thank you.
Michael Kerner said, cis females getting boob jobs bothers no one else. A trans person forcing themselves into opposite sex spaces is bothering others.
Yes, I completely agree. That is the concern that is on your side. That is the reason that I see honestly motivating you. And I do respect that reason. I think it is disproportionately applied, obviously.
I had so many more bullet points to get through.
I'm sorry. I am so very, very willing to have more of these, and hopefully you don't find my combative state role play so off-putting that you're not willing to try.
No, I'm down. I'm down to do this again. We didn't get to children.
We didn't. No, you started talking about different live streams, and we are up to like 24. I mean, seriously. The number of things that I'm interested in talking to you about is growing, and in an infinite series would obviously top out at infinity.
We need a list. Okay, I'll let you go.
List. I know where that list is.
Oh, add it to the list. I have like a whole like note thing of like,
yeah, just search for bang live stream topic in the text. That'll knock them all out.
We did get to prisons. We didn't get, and we got to sports.
Yeah.
We did do some of the things on the list.
Yes. And you didn't give me any Bible verses at all. So the pun and the title. I don't need the Bible. I
don't need the Bible.
That's fine.
I don't need the Bible. But next time we could do 2 hours on just kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might see me popping off.
I'm ready. Come at me, baby.
Okay. How do you want to wrap this up? Just any
thank you. We've summarized your position. Is there a moral to this story? And I want to give you the last word to your audience. And I will calmly sit here and seethe.
I think that we can follow the non-aggression principle and not do violence to peaceful people and still have social norms that work for the majority and for society to function properly without being held hostage to the special needs of a small minority of highly volatile people.
I said I was going to give you the last word, so I'm just going to give you applause. That was well spoken, Bruce. Bye-bye.
Bye.